daddy daddy yum, daddy daddy yaddy daddy daddy yum, daddy daddy yum, daddy daddy yum, daddy daddy da. Baby, meine Mutter mit der Herzen schummen, Verbus soll ich sorgen, Sekimen am Morgen, ich leb mit Gewurres, ich verdick meine Sures, I'm a Nundik, I'm a Menschele, I'm a Destiny's Child, and I'm meant to go back, so oh yes, soy, piroi, una coima, no yes, soy, piroi, una van, oh yes, soy, smamme getraie, die Liebe von a man, how like the smoke of a chimney, how like the smoke of a tree, this is the love, oh dear mother, the love of any man. Hey, die Flieger, es ist mir schwer, zu viel Sachen hat die Mama angetan, dem Feigele, dem Schwachen. Shalom, shalom alechem, shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, shalom, shalom, shalom alechem, shalom.
Shalom Aleichem, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Shmoozing with Avi Hoffman. I could not be more excited to introduce to you tonight someone who I have known about for a while, and she and I have actually had the opportunity to do a few things together, and I cannot express how incredibly impressed I am by this young talent. So let me tell you a little bit about Lea Kalisch. She is a Swiss-born. She is born in Switzerland. New York City brood, polyglot actress, singer, and dancer. She's also known as the Shtreimel Girl. And I can't wait to hear the story behind that, because I don't know it. She has starred in multiple Yiddish productions already. God of Vengeance, Gott von der Kumme, and Awaken Sing, one of my favorite Clifford Odets plays, and as Daphna in Bad Jews. Her most recent appearances were in the movie The Vigil and the Zoom performance of Der Vogel von Ghetto. And I can tell you from personal experience that she was the witch of the ghetto. Quite extraordinary performance. Lea has performed her one-woman show In Love with a Dream and various Yiddish solo concerts in New York City and Europe. She blends Yiddishkeit with Latino flavor and a New York swag. And over the past year, Lea has entertained audiences with various musical programs on Zoom alongside Rabbi T. Following up her successful debut music video, Eshes Chayil of Hip Hop, she is going to be releasing her next music video sometime this month. Stay tuned, leakalish.com. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to my schmooze, the beautiful and the brilliant Lea Kalisch.
Ta-da-da-da.
Hi, Tyre, how are you?
Hello, great. Thanks for this amazing introduction.
Are you kidding? I am so impressed with you. Look, I've been doing this a long time, and only in the last few years have I discovered so many incredibly young and talented people who somehow have fallen in love with Yiddish. So before we get into a lot of other things, I really want to know, number one, how did you come to be born Jewish in Switzerland? Number two, what in the world inspired you to get involved in Yiddish theater, and Yiddish culture, and Yiddish music, and bring your incredible talent to this language?
Alrighty, so number one, so I remember, how did I end up in Switzerland? It's actually pretty simple. So it's sad, but simple. My grandpa was from Czechoslovakia, and he was in Auschwitz and other camps, and ended up in Switzerland because there were rehabilitation facilities that he went to after the war because he was sick for many years. I forgot what condition he had. So he went to a rehab for 7 years in Davos and others in the mountains in Switzerland. And after he was cured, he wanted to stay and got an apprentice as a jeweler. And then on a Jewish weekend, a few years later, he met my grandma who used to live in Italy, in Südtirol, so very close to Switzerland. So they met and then built a life in Switzerland.
Huh. Do you know where in Czechoslovakia your grandfather?
He was born in Bratislava.
Okay.
Actually, he was born in Medivelker, but then they moved to Bratislava very early on. Yes, and he had one brother who survived and lived in Israel, but that's it.
I was going to say my father was in Auschwitz, and he was in Slovakia from the little Shtetelach in the Carpathian Mountains. So your grandfather and my father were in Auschwitz probably around the same time.
Yeah, he was there only towards the end.
Yes.
He was in other camps, yeah.
Yeah. Most of the Hungarian and Czechoslovakian Jews only got there in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, wow. So when you were growing up in Switzerland, which is a beautiful country, and I've been many times, and it's gorgeous. What language didn't you speak? German, Swiss German?
Yeah, so I spoke Swiss German with my mom, but my dad's from Vienna. But his parents are also from Czechoslovakia, but he lived in Vienna his whole life until he met my mom. So with my dad, I spoke High German, and with my mom, Swiss German. And my grandma spoke a little Italian to us, but nobody really spoke Yiddish. So my grandpa speaks, or he's now passed away, but he spoke Hungarian, Slovakian, and German, but no Yiddish, because most Jews did not speak Yiddish in Bratislava back then. They spoke German, and then the nannies were Hungarian. That's how he learned Hungarian.
So where did your Yiddish come from?
It's a good question. It just came from within. You know, it's weird because I only went to Jewish school for 2 years, from 6 to 8, basically.
In Switzerland.
Because then it became too religious, and then I went to other schools, and then I had a bat mitzvah, and I had like Hebrew schooling a little, but so Yiddish was not in my immediate environment, but somehow it was within. There was one experience. I was like 8 years old. We were in France on a boat with my grandparents on vacation, and I would put on a talis and a kippah and shakel and with my hands up and imitate that I'd be a rabbi and mumble some gibberish Yiddish. I don't know. Like it's a miracle. I don't know. I'm not sure. It was somewhere within, and listening to some, cheesy Yiddish Berry sisters, that was sort of around faintly.
So do you remember the first time you actually encountered officially Yiddish as a language that you wanted to be a part of? How did that happen?
So there was a Yiddish band called Ben Dorim in Zurich. So my dad is a Yiddish lover, music, arts, Yiddish lover, and he schlepped me to that concert by this band Ben Dorim, and none of them is Jewish in the band. It's so typical Swiss klezmer, and it was nice. And then my dad is a schmoozer. He should be on this. So he went up to the singer and obviously introduced his daughter. And then so it happened that they needed a singer because one of their singers was sick or not available for a concert. So I did a bunch of concerts with them. That's the first time I actually sang Yiddish, but that was just singing. And then, I mean, I knew Yiddish existed because of the Haredi community in Zurich, which I hear in the supermarket and at the kosher store, you know. But then not till I went to New York and saw you,
Sorry.
not until I saw you in Death of a Salesman, which was also because of my dad who came to visit me in New York and said, "Oh, Lea, this Yiddish play, we have to see this." So we went, and because of my dad is a schmoozer, he said, "Oh, you got to schmooze Daniel Kahn. He lives in Berlin. Connections, connections, connections." And so I saw it once, and I came back, saw it twice, and that, I think, seeing that, something clicked that had been there all along. But I think that was the official night where I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing.
Oh, so someday I'll be able to say, you know, Lea Kalisch, she got into Yiddish when she came to see me in Death of a Salesman.
Yes. Like we were blown away because I read this piece in English literature class in high school and I liked it, but seeing it on stage and then in Yiddish, it felt like it was meant to be in Yiddish, especially that play. So it was eye-opening. And the performance, the actors were great. I mean, yeah, it was just amazing.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary production. So did you actually go and learn Yiddish, or because you're German, it probably came very naturally to you?
It came natural, but I ended up going to YIVO summer program in 2018 because I felt like after doing 2 major productions in Yiddish, I was still the one who needed the transliteration. I could read in Hebrew, but I was slow. So I was like, no, I can't be a Yiddish actor and not read the real script, which still a lot of Yiddish actors do.
Very few Yiddish actors that I know who are working actually read the Yiddish script.
I know. And it's okay, you know, whatever is fastest, because we have to move fast.
Right.
But I wanted to dig in and know what is this language, who are the writers, and I knew so little, because really all I knew was people speaking Yiddish at the kosher spot, like the Hasidim, which I love their Yiddish, and then some of the songs, but only the famous songs by the Berry Sisters and maybe Mike Borstein, you know. Yeah, so I wanted to dig in, and so I did that program. And actually, no, right after I saw Death of a Salesman, I was in a workman's circle class.
Oh.
So I was in a class there, but I was a bit bored because it was not for somebody like me. Let's put it that way. But so yeah, I forgot about that. So it was like a slow play, doing a little class, another play, seeing another show.
Right, because what I noticed from your work, and we're going to see a few videos and things that you do, you know, what I've noticed is that you have enormous knowledge. You know, again, one of the things about a lot of people in the Yiddish world today is even though they're doing Yiddish theater, they don't necessarily read Yiddish or read Yiddish literature or know much about the history. And I feel like you've really taken the time to find out and do the research and learn. Again, I'm so impressed because so many people I know don't take the time. What did you discover when you started digging a little deeper, and how did that influence you to become the Shtreimel Girl?
Yeah.
And I want to hear the story.
Okay, so first, I think I felt overwhelmed. I knew there's so much out there that I have no clue about, and it stressed me. It was stressful because I'm very competitive. I like knowing where, like I like to be the queen of the space I'm moving in. So without knowing anything, I can't. So there was just this, I knew there's a huge world that is open to me that I have not entered. So I felt that, and that's why I took the step to dig. What I've discovered when I dug, that there's too much. There's so much there. I realized I don't need to know everything to do what I'm doing. Like I'm quite selective. I know right away when I like something, and I know right away when this is not my genre. It's not my thing. I discovered there's the plays I've done so far and read. It's just so me. It feels like it's a part of me that I don't live in my life in English or German. Like so many of the plays, they're so like sexual, or there's a certain like texture to it that I don't find outside of Yiddish.
Very rarely associated with Yiddish.
No, yeah,
Most people think of Yiddish, oh, you tell funny jokes, lemil, shmut. I mean, it becomes a joke for a lot of people, or it's very sentimental. It's very short. Oi, die Felder von das. Very few people realize how sexy Yiddish is and was and continues to be.
yeah.
So what did you find?
In terms of literature?
In terms of the sexiness of Yiddish literature?
Oh, it's just I just forgot her name, but she's one of the most famous female poets. What's her name? The Acrobat. I mean, that's very famous. What's her name?
Okay, you're catching me off guard, but we'll figure it out.
It'll come to me. No, what's her name now? Anyways, I just discovered there's so much juicy stuff in there. For example, we were in this class at Yevo and reading the Itzig Munger poems, the different episodes when Abraham and Sarah sent out Hagar. I forgot what the title is of this poetic series.
Chumash leader.
Yes. Most of them I was not interested by, but then there's always this one thing, and always when I'm very romantic and I'm very interested in seeing sexual stuff on stage. That's for some reason. So there was this one, which then I made into a song, that was just, it brought it to the core. It's like, Oi azoi wie roich von a Koimen, Oi azoi wie roich von a Bahn, Oi azoi ist die Liebe von a Mann. And it felt like it could have been a blues song. Like it felt so modern and so like timeless.
Remind me after the schmooze, one of the songs in Songs of Paradise is called Hagar's Lament.
Oh, yeah?
Based on the Itzik Munger poetry. And it's a beautiful tune written by Rosalie Jarrett up in Boston. And it's probably a great song for you to sing.
Oh, I've never heard it.
Yeah.
All right, I'll remind you.
Good. So where did the Shtreimel come in?
Okay, so that is sort of almost a separate story, but obviously everything is connected in life. So the Shtreimel is this. I had a fur hat, a Russian fur hat from my grandma. It was not a Shtreimel. It was just a fur hat that looked a bit like a flat, like a mini Shtreimel.
Do you want to tell everybody what a Shtreimel is for those who don't know?
So yeah, the Shtreimel is a fur hat. It's mostly fur, sometimes fake, that mostly Haredim wear. Different sects wear different shapes. And with the times, they also change. So now the higher the Shtreimel, the more fur, the more expensive, the more cool you are. Most Haredim have more than one Shtreimel, one for the fiesta, so that it can get a little ugly, and the fancy, expensive one they only wear when they're not, sweating too much. And it's not clear where it actually dates back from. I mean, it was aristocracy in Poland, Russia, the cold weather.
Actually, there is a story behind it. The aristocracy and the anti-Semites used to force to wear hats made out of rat. And they would force them to wear, rat furs. And when the Jews became a little more emancipated and had a little bit more freedom, they chose to show themselves as being able to wear these beautiful fur hats, as opposed to anti-Semitic, furs of rats.
Interesting. Yeah, in my research, I know there's different explanations for why people wear Shtreimels, but I've never heard this one.
So
that was not my explanation.
Yes, what is your version?
So I had this fur hat from my grandma that I loved, and I wore it in New York because it was cold in the winter, and people on the street would stop me and say, "Oh, I love your Shtreimel," and I started rapping for fundraising purposes. So I made raps while still in school to fundraise for this project I was part of, and then this Revolucion Latina, like a Latin nonprofit organization that did some free dance classes. And I rapped, and I needed something that makes me look funky while I was in a sweaty dance shirt. So I put on that hat that I had with me, and I liked how it looked, and I started doing that again and again. So that was one thing. And at the same time, I was meeting all these Hasidim because of the Yiddish plays I was doing. And so I sort of became obsessed with Hasidim. I have a little fetish. I don't know what it is. I don't know if fetish is the right word, but I like Hasidim. So I hung out with them. And then I was in school, and I was taking a hip hop class on hip hop culture. And we had to write a thesis project. And I knew I want to combine Judaism and hip hop somehow. I have no clue. I think somehow I was at a Shabbat table where somebody sang Eshet or something. I don't recall exactly. And I was like, you know what? This seems like somehow with this song, I can combine the two. Not sure how. And then I started writing this rap called Eshet of Hip Hop, which I then performed in that classroom wearing that fake Shtreimel that I owned, that fur hat from my grandma. Then that went to sleep, nothing happened. I graduated, and a half a year later, my friend Einat said, "Lea, we're going to be in Israel at the same time. We need to shoot something. Do you have a song, anything?" So I dug out that script, and that's how the whole journey started, really. I had this great piece of work that I wrote in a class with a guy named Rabbi Darkside. He was my teacher, a Jewish rapper who's more culturally Jewish than anything. But he said, "This is a good piece. You should do something about it." And then we traveled to Israel, and I was suddenly collecting Strangles all over Borough Park and Mea Shearim and Brooklyn. And then how I got to my own Shtreimel that I now possess was this story. I met all these Hasidim, and I met a couple. And throughout my time with them, they were going through a divorce. So I knew both of them, but he left to Florida. She lived 5 minutes from where I lived in Brooklyn. And I was asking around anybody getting rid of Shtreimels, or she was texting me, "Lea, do you know who needs Shtreimels?" I said, "I need one." So she sold me her not yet ex-husband's Shtreimel for $200.
Wow.
Which $200 for a gorgeous, almost never worn Shtreimel is nothing.
Right.
He doesn't know that I own his Shtreimel.
He does now.
Well, no, he doesn't know who I'm talking. He might know. Anyways,
Right.
So that's how I got to my own Shtreimel after borrowing it for 2 years.
I love it. Well, let me show everybody like a sample of one of the things that I so appreciate about you is the ability to take the Yiddish, to take the Jewish milieu, and put it into a modern, contemporary, and very humorous style. So let's watch this for a little bit.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. Fremder, étranger, stranger. Glücklich zu sehen, je suis enchantée. Happy to see you. Bleibe, reste, stay. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome to the Seder, Seder, Seder.
So I just wanted to kind of give a little taste of how you can take something and turn it into something so different. And that's kind of where you were going with the whole rap thing, right? I mean, I am so impressed when young people find and discover this world and then make it their own. So what was the B-List Seder exactly?
So the B-List Seder was born in COVID last year when the A-list actors did the Saturday night Seder when we were all stuck at home. Some famous actors, Jewish and Hollywood people, plus Josh Groban and some non-Jews, put on the Saturday night Seder. I don't know if did you see it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so I was in my bed watching it, a few like skipping around, and I told my boyfriend, I was like, I should be in this. Like, what is this? Why is Josh Groban in this from the first place? And then it's not even that good, you know? Some stuff was good, some was boring. So we were sitting in bed, and I said, why don't we do? Me and my boyfriend was like, why don't we do our own thing? So literally because that was already like the second night of Passover or something when we saw that. Within 72 hours, we put this B-list Seder, because we're not the A-listers, the B-list Seder together. And since everyone was stuck at home, everyone had time, you know? And it was a snowstorm out here in Minnesota. So we were literally locked up for 3 days, working nonstop, producing material and recruiting other artists that we knew that we wanted to showcase and feature. So we did it last year, and we raised money for the CDC. That was sort of the mission. And it was quite successful. People enjoyed it. And this year, we thought, let's do it again, because we're still in COVID. And it was really an amazing way to bring together B-listers, like artists that need more views and more platform, and also to put them something in their hand and say, do something. Because often there's not that many times where you action and then you get to just do something. And yeah, it was crazy because it was very stressful this year again. But that's how this happened again.
Well, and the amazing thing that we learned is once COVID hit and we couldn't do our live shows anymore, and we went to the all virtual, format, how many thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people around the world really want to connect with this kind of Yiddishkeit and Yiddish language and Jewishness, with a Yiddish taste, a bissel Yiddish time.
Yeah.
So tell me about your first experience with Yiddish theater. Like, what was it? How did it go? What happened to you emotionally?
Okay, so after I saw you in Death of a Salesman, I started workshopping with the new Yiddish rep, reading some scripts. But the script they were reading was God of Vengeance. And the moment I had eyes on that script, I was obsessed with the script. So there's a little backstory. I was, as a child, obsessed with prostitutes. So it's a funny story and it's absurd. But after Shabbat dinners, my mom would take the car and drive me up and down the river to see prostitutes. And I was like 9, 10 years old. But I was somehow fascinated by women and standing out there. And I would ask questions. And we would do that quite often. And my grandma, the next day, would stop by. She would say in German, "Und wie war die Hurentour?" How was, how was the tour of prostitutes?
Hurentour.
Yeah, there was something about the topic of prostitutes that had been in my life. And then later in high school, I wrote actually a report for the newspaper about the prostitution in Switzerland. So there has been this fascination. And then God of Vengeance was sort of like meant to be for me in many ways.
Those of you out there who don't know, God of Vengeance, one of the greatest Yiddish plays ever written by Sholem Ash, which is all about a brothel, a Jewish brothel run by a religious man. And eventually it became the basis for the Broadway show Indecent. For those of you who never saw God of Vengeance, Indecent is the contemporary version of God of Vengeance.
Yeah.
The adaptation.
So I saw that script and I was like, it was like, I need to do this. But then you were in the first version of it, were you?
I have done a few different versions.
But you were in the one with Eleanor.
No.
Oh, okay. So they put on this first version and I auditioned for it, but I didn't get it. And I was like upset.
How could they not hire you? What is wrong with these
I don't
people?
know. I did not get the parts, and I was upset, and I went to see it, and I walked out, and I don't want to insult anyone, but I was like, I'm okay. I wasn't in this show. I think the sexiness was not brought out, like that dirty, but this the contrast of the purity and that opposite, that dirty and sultriness was not brought out to me. It was a bit flat, and I was like, sure, I guess it was not meant to be. Then I heard they're putting it on again, and then they called me in, and it was a very different approach to the show, very different, a much more physical and visceral approach, less intellectual, I would say, more like as in something you'd feel. And I think I was just right for that part, for that production, and I have to say it was amazing because I was able to bring my athleticism to the table, which not many plays allow you to do that. American theater is very up here, but this director used my sort of strong body and gave me a limp. He gave me a freaking limp as a prostitute, and it turned out to be a sexy limp. So I have to really put the credit into the director's hand. But doing that, it just felt like home. I don't know how else to describe it.
Which role did you play?
I played Hindle.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I was like a pirate prostitute with one eye and a limp, and I painted my crotch red because I thought it was sexy or something. And I think it was.
Okay.
So that was my first encounter, and it was just, it felt like I should have been doing this all along. It was just like home.
So out of the Yiddish theater, you do a lot of music, you do a lot of singing, you do rap, you do Latino. Where does the Latina come from? Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah. I was just in Mexico. That's why I wasn't on this other reading. But it's the other thing, I don't know. Some people just have things within them. I'm not sure where it comes from. I'm a big salsa dancer. So is my sister. And I love Latin culture, especially throughout the dance and the music. And especially living in New York. I mean, auditions, and I got into this. I was involved with this organization, Revolucion Latina, which is an amazing nonprofit that gives opportunities for actors, dancers, mostly for no cost. And I had a crush on this Latin guy who was in a Broadway show called On Your Feet. And I loved the show because I love the dance. I just love, you know what? You don't find dance in Judaism lots. You don't find it. And that's why I don't like, yeah, Jewish weddings, there's the greatest dance. But at the klez festivals,
Right.
there's
Not anymore. Once upon a time, if you go back to the 60s, the 50s, the 60s, maybe even some of the early 70s, there were modern Jewish choreographers who were dancing to Yiddish music. And it was very, much of the time, very stylized, all that stuff. But you're right, there isn't as much Yiddish style dancing other than.
No, I mean, they teach the traditional dances in the Class Canada and stuff. But to me, it's not fully expression. I can't explain it. It's not wild enough.
It's not modern. It's not passionate.
Yeah.
It's the same old, dances that have been done
Yeah.
for generations. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the Latin dance culture. So, yeah, I was just around. I would go salsa dancing every weekend in New York. And that's how also I learned Spanish, really. I never really studied. I just picked up a grammar book and I traveled to Argentina. And I hung out with a lot of Latin guys. That's the truth. But the thing really is, what bothers me often is I can fit in anywhere, really. I can fit into the Class Canada groupies. I can fit in among the Latinos, and where I'm really not the only white person. I can fit sort of anywhere. But what bothers me is that everything is so isolated. Every group of people, they're the Yiddishists, they're the modern dancers. Those are the people who love musical theater, and this is the hip hop rappers who do cool beatbox battles. And that's why I'm trying to do it all, because I don't want to feel like this is when I have to be that person. That's when I need to be like that. And I think we need to be exposed to more oppositions. We need to be more around the other, something else. And I've just found that often we have a lot of the niche stuff already. We have the pure klezmer lovers and just that. And for people who love that, that's great. And I sometimes love it too. But me personally, I'm trying to bring in every corner of the world in one space, really.
Well, and that's what, again, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is, this idea that Yiddish is dynamic now. It's no longer what it used to be. There were minor revolutions in the Yiddish theater. Obviously, the early God of Vengeance in 1907, that was a revolution. But by the 50s and 60s, those revolutions were over. And by the 70s and 80s, Yiddish theater was just, a lot of old actors playing young roles in melodramas that were done the same old way for the same old audiences. Mm-hmm. And then in the 1980s, things started to change a little bit. And people like Moshe Rosenfeld and Zalman Malotic and the Golden Land, and that was, a group of us that were young and kind of trying to do something new with old material. Mm-hmm. And then Songs of Paradise came along at the Public Theater, which was new material done in a new Saturday Night Live style with rap and jazz and roll and all this kind of different styles. But now, here we are in 2021, and I look around and I see people like you, and it makes my heart, happy, because I know that Yiddish is now dynamic. It's alive, it's thriving, it's evolving into, when I see kids like Yid Life Crisis, up in Montreal, and I see the Yiddish rappers, Josh Dolgan and Dan Kahn out in Berlin, and all of these amazing talents like yourself that are taking Yiddish and evolving it. Let me go to another video, if you don't mind, because we found so many wonderful things that you do. This is a little more serious.
I'm standing in your spot. All your stuff is still there. The brushes, the creams, the comb, which caressed your last silver hairs. I'm picking up your shirt, draped over by your hands, and I search for you in that faint morning sweat. Ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya di da di di. I see the photos on your desk. I hear your voice, how you're schepping naches. Menschele mein Metzia, ich trag dich tief in meinem Herzen. Who will carry me from now on? Who will look at me like you did? What about all the things you built and cherished? Has their meaning from now on forever perished? Where are you now? Are you seeing me from down here? Can you feel me right now? Are you proud? Will I ever see you again? Will I ever feel you again? Please send me a sign telling me it's just a matter of time. I call for Shabbos and I want to schmooze. It's you my Yiddish charm wants to amuse. Ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya di da di di, ya di da di di di, ya di da di di, ya di da di di di, ya di da di di. I see you standing at the open door. I gave one kiss, but you demand one more. This time I won't roll my eyes, 'cause I know that one day even your love dies. You didn't bench me before you left. Who will bench me from now on? Ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye, ya ba 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 bye bye, ya ba 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 bye.
There's just something about that really gets me. There's just something about it that just. Can you tell me what that is? What is this song? I assume it's something you wrote, or it's original.
Yeah, so my grandpa passed away in September during COVID. Not from COVID, his heart stopped. And I was in America. So I had to fly to Switzerland for the funeral during COVID, and it was just tragic. But the day after, I walked around in their house, in my grandparents' house, and I walked through the bathroom, and his stuff was all there. So I had these few notes or observations, and I write everything down because I was grieving. And then, I don't know, while I was in Switzerland or then back in Minnesota or New York, I started writing the song. I don't know how it came. I wrote a letter to, so the sad thing about my grandpa's funeral was he was a part of an Orthodox community. So the funeral was led by an Orthodox rabbi, meaning Haredi, basically. So women were not really big part of it, nor was there an opportunity to say something. So I sort of wrote an imaginary letter to my grandpa, but there was never an opportunity to say that. So I wrote a song, and that's the song. But what was really hard was I was far away, and I hadn't seen him in 8-9 months. And it's crazy. Once somebody's gone, you realize how much you took certain things for granted, like benching me. He was the only one who ever benched me. And every time before I fly to New York, he said, "Let me bench you." And I was like, roll my eyes and okay. And now it's like the fact that my dad will do it, but it's not the same thing. That's just sad. I find it really hard I wonder how people really grieve. It's the first time I lose somebody in my life that's close to my heart. And I wonder how people get over it. Or do they not? I don't know.
It's songs. This is how you were able to deal with it, is becoming so creative. For those of you out there who don't know what benchen is a Yiddish word for praying, for blessing, to give a blessing, was to bench. Do you know what the root of benchen is?
No.
Benedicere. It's a Latin root. It's one of the few Yiddish words that has a Latin root to it. Benedicere is bench. So there you go. Also davening. Davening?
Yeah, we use that for praying.
Right, praying. Davening or divinus. It's a Latin, it's one of the very few Yiddish words that
I
have.
didn't know that.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
No, please continue. So you wrote this.
No, it's interesting because you asked me, like, where does the Yiddish come from? Because my grandpa never spoke Yiddish. And, I don't know, but it is somehow connected to him. That sort of, because he survived the Holocaust and his whole family died, it's through him that I think I have this connection to the old, to the shtetl, to that sentimentality to what is lost. And I do love that about Yiddish. It's not that I just want to take Yiddish and only rap. I think there's this depth and this melancholy and that heaviness to it that I love. And I think people, it makes them, they want to wheel in that sentiment of we lost something, you know? But I think I had that through him some way, even though he didn't really listen to Yiddish music, but so many words like mein Menschle bist a Metzia. I mean, he had so many words. It's like last year I asked him, what is a Metzia? Like I knew it's something good because he calls me and he smiles,
Right.
but I didn't know what it was. So that how I say in the song, it was him. Like I loved calling him and telling him my new Yiddish stuff and would make up Yiddish monologues, you know? So it feels like that because of more and more people like him are gone. I mean, he was one of the last survivors. He was 91. Something is sort of lost. And I think with this music, you can sort of keep it up.
Mm.
But I'm not sure if forever or if we're meant to. But definitely the music, this going back to the old.
Right.
I do really love that about Yiddish.
Well, but that goes back to what I've been talking about, is this idea that, you know, Yiddish, a lot of people don't realize the Yiddish is over 1,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1,000 years, Yiddish has gone back and forth and back and forth between, oh my God, it's dying.
Yeah.
You know, 300 years ago, they said within 10 years, Yiddish will be dead.
Uh-huh.
The guy who said it is dead. But here we are talking about Yiddish, right? So, but it also goes back and forth between life and evolution. And every generation or two or three, Yiddish starts to come back and it starts to evolve again. And it becomes part of the mainstream culture again. You know, I taught a course at the university that was called Yiddish, the Foundation of Modern Culture. Because my belief that if you look at what we think of as television, film, music, comedy, I mean, almost any element of modern culture today, you can find the roots going back to the world of Yiddish, whether it's New York at the turn of the century or Europe or Hollywood. You know, it's a constant evolution. And that's, again, why I so wanted to talk to you, because I see you and other people like you as the modern evolution of Yiddish and Yiddish culture and Yiddish language and Yiddish feeling and Yiddishkeit, even if it's in English. For instance, let's watch the last video and then we'll start to get to the, because it's amazing how quickly time flies when you're
amazing.
talking to somebody so amazingly interesting. So this is Estra no Oana.
I've been reigning as the queen of all of Zushan. This is quite a role I'm playing, and I really don't know why. The town is buzzing, heard from Mordechai, my cousin, that the even wicked Haman is blaming all the Jews with lies. It is up to me, yes I must proceed, have to see the king, deal with this thing, yes I must be brave to defeat this knave, I must act today, I must go to the throne on my own, though he hasn't called me, so he will know how far I'll go, for the Jews I might choose to make news and set us free, it's up to me. Someday a scroll will show I made history. I wish I could be the perfect ruler, help my husband Achashverosh govern this great big land. But I'm Jewish, so no matter if it's foolish, I must do the menschy thing. Time's at hand. I can go with pride, I am fine and strong. If he really loves me, he will play along. Tell of Haman's lies and his spiteful wrongs. I must do this deed. I must go to the throne on my own, though he hasn't called me. So he will know how far I'll go. For the Jews I must choose to make news and set us free. It's up to me. Someday a scroll will show I made history. I must go to the throne on my own, though he hasn't called me. So he will know how far I'll go. For the Jews I must choose to make news and set us free. It's up to me. It's up to me.
Again, to me, the idea that you can take these pieces and rearrange them in a modern contemporary telling in English of the great story of Esther and Purim in a way that today's young people can relate to. And I love that. So congratulations. Bravo, bravo.
Thanks. I do have to credit that this piece was written by a rabbi in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And I had the honor to perform it. But I do this a lot. 2 years ago, I did a Purim rap. So I rapped the Purim story as a spoken word thing. And that with like slang words and some swearing, and people really enjoyed it.
That's so cool. So tell us, what are you doing now? I mean, now that COVID is going to start going away,
Yeah.
What have you got in the works? What's coming?
So next week, my new video is coming out called Falling. And it's not rap. It's actually a really beautiful pop ballad. There is a Shtreimel in the video, but I'm not wearing it. But I had to make sure there is a Shtreimel in it. And I'm actually shooting another video that is very New Yorkish. It's not so much Jewish this summer. And I'm shooting a movie in 2 weeks. I do 1,000 different things. It's also not Jewish. It's a movie about climate change, which it's time to delve into that topic. And then I have a bunch of performances in Yiddish solo concerts lined up in Europe. Nice. For the fall.
Oh, nice.
So that's when for European audiences, I have to sort of fit myself a bit more into that old traditional. That's what they love. Okay. So I will do that gladly with a little bit of swag and Latino flavor.
Where are you performing?
In Vienna, there's a Jewish festival happening, and the theme this year is women's power, something like that. They've been moving it. It was supposed to be last year or this spring, and then most likely Munich. There's another Jewish festival again. Things are still dates are moving constantly. But yeah, I'm waiting to dig into the next Yiddish play in person. I would love for the Vogel von Ghetto to actually happen. It's one of those sexy roles again, you see.
You were extraordinary, truly. I mean, that was, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it was a play reading called Der Vogel vom Ghetto, the bird of the ghetto. And it was based on the story of Yaakov Gens and the, I guess it was the Vilna ghetto, and all, the different ghettos and the Jewish, political struggle of the ghettos. I played Yaakov Gens, and Lea played my young, the Machshefa, the witch, who bewitched me. And it was an extraordinary piece with, and I hope they do it.
It should be done in person for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure there'll be more. I think that as COVID starts to go away, more and more things are going to start happening.
Yeah, I was hoping to tour my one-woman show in Florida before COVID because of the Latin. There's a lot of Latin and Yiddish. but it's almost like I've outgrown the show. I need to write a sequel. So I'm sort of seeing what's going on there.
Right. Well, if the opportunity does arise, perhaps we can help bring you to Florida so you can do the show and still have a good time.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. Good. So, is there anything, how do people find you? I mean, I know where.
You can just type in Lea Kalisch into Google, and there's a bunch of things that will pop up. But my website is leakalisch, leakalisch.com. If you speak German, it's similar to musikalisch, which is the adjective for somebody who's musically talented. So I have my own adjective, which is called Lea Kalisch.
Yeah.
And yeah, same on Facebook, Instagram, my name.
So you pronounce it Kalisch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my understanding is you are related somehow to the great Yiddish actress Bertha Kalisch. She was
Somehow.
Yes. Do we know how? Do you know how?
No, there's actually a cousin in Yerushalayim who's a Kalish and wrote a book about the whole, like how the Kalish tree family. I've been wanting to meet her and get that book, and it's in Hebrew. I did learn Hebrew throughout COVID, so I can now really read, but it's like a whole fat book. So maybe there's some insight in there on how we are related.
Beautiful. Well, I look forward to hearing the story. Is there anything else you want to tell us before?
I want to thank you for bringing me on, and I really want to play the foigle with you. So let's make it happen. Let's hope it happens. Did you hear that? Whoever is watching.
It sounds to me like you are the kind of person who makes things happen. So sooner or later, you will make whatever you want happen.
Yeah. But thank you so much for bringing me on. It's a pleasure talking to you. I could go on about other things and discuss another time.
We will. We'll do
private schmooze.
After you become a big star, you'll remember me and come on my little schmooze show, and we'll continue to reminisce and explore. Great. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Lea Kalisch. Thank you so much, my Shtreimel Girl. It's a wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderful to get to know you a little better. So I'm very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Großem Dank. And yes, send me that song.
I will.